FujiFilm's worst lens. This lens is way too loud. This lens is just too old. Guys, these are all things that I have heard about this FujiFilm lens that a lot of people are considering to be one of FujiFilm's worst. Now, the lens that we're talking about today is the FujiFilm 18mm f2. This is the lens right here, and it came out originally with the Fujifilm X Pro 1. I just realized I probably said Fujifilm like 20 times, so we're just gonna say Fuji. But you guys, we are in San Francisco today with the 18mm f2, and I wanted to try this lens out myself for a number of different reasons. One, it has a 28mm equivalent full frame focal length, which is great for things like street photography or just generalized everyday photography. But on top of that, this lens, being an older lens, is now starting to reflect its age in price. I picked this lens up right here on Amazon for $300 used. I've seen these go online anywhere between $200 to $400, and for it being a Fujifilm lens with autofocus with a 28mm equivalent, just how bad can this actually be? Alright, so the goal for today's video is to go around with the X Pro 2 along with the Fuji 18mm f2 lens and just see what it can do and really see if it is Fujifilm's worst lens. Now, I obviously have my doubts about it, and throughout the day as I shoot kind of the POV style, because I got the GoPro strapped onto my chest, I want to talk a little bit about my experience with the lens and really just see how bad it can be. Shout out to this bus parking right in front of me. But this is my first time shooting this lens, and so let's go and see what this is about. Huge shout out to Kingsley, man, for just talking to me, inspiring me, making sure that my day is going better. One of the most genuine people I've ever met. That is the type of human beings that I love to be around. I am super inspired right now. So with that said, let's set up the camera. Let's talk about how we're gonna set this guy up first. All right, so first things first, you guys, we are shooting in manual focus mode. I am at 5.6 with my ISO set to 800. And from there on out, we are going to be using zone focusing. We are pre-focused to about 1.5 feet. And I think we're just gonna get started. We're just gonna get going, so let's go ahead and go. Alright guys, quick little quiet time break while we have the time. Autofocus honestly is kind of loud. Check this out. Just listen to the sound of it. I don't know how loud that is truly compared to the sound of the street, but I've been shooting in manual focus, zone focusing to about 1.2 meters, and things have been looking great. Alright, so here's a great example of a leading line that isn't your most common. These shapes right here, I don't know if you guys can see that. The shapes right here kind of create a V. So not only is this creating like a subframe, but you're encapsulating your subject in that highlighted area, but you're also using the V almost as like leading lines. So when you go to make that photograph, you line that up. The right one going this way is basically my main subject, or excuse me, my main leading line. So when someone walks through the frame, like the right there, you know, easily you can kind of capture them moving in. It works both ways.
You make YouTube videos, right?
Sorry?
You make YouTube videos about film?
I do.
I love your videos.
Thank you.
I watch them.
I appreciate it. What's your name?
Leticia.
Leticia?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Alright you guys, so let's talk about the Fujifilm 18mm f2 lens. Now, first and foremost, you guys, I gotta be honest, it is a little bit loud. Now, when this camera is in autofocus mode, it will continue to hunt, especially if you have that set up to like continuous, but check this out. And that's partly due to the focusing, because the focusing is by wire, and so the whole entire lens hood will actually adjust as you focus. So I don't know if you guys can see that, it's making like micro adjustments. But I mean, other than that, I think this lens is actually pretty good. I don't see why a lot of people, you know, kind of threw shade at the lens per se, because it performs really well for an 18mm f2, and for when it came out, it's one of the lenses that I think is probably the best suited lens for the Fujifilm lineup. You know, something that's wide angle, something that is going to be at f2, can still give you some really good results. It's also a pancake styled lens, and with the lens hood off, it's fairly small. So here is the lens hood right here. I mentioned this in the other video that it's nice to have kind of like a squared off lens hood, but this is what the lens looks like with the lens hood off. I do think it is a really nice package. It just looks nice and small, and then the front element as well, you know, it's kind of, it has a concave factor to it, so everything just seems more compact. And for being a 28mm equivalent, I think this lens is actually really fun. Now, I do have one complaint other than the focusing being extremely loud, and that is something that is honestly so small, and it's just that the aperture ring starts from the right side all the way to the left. I'm used to having lenses that start off at f2 on the far left and then go to f16 on the right. Coming from like a Summicron or something like the Voigtlander lens, that is kind of how it's set up, and so it just feels a little bit different. Again, it's not a huge issue, but there were times where I wanted to open up my aperture but ended up stopping down. All right, so my final verdict on this lens here before I do a complete review, is, at least for street photography purposes, it's an amazing lens. The way I would recommend shooting it would be to set this thing into manual focus and just manual focus the entire time. Now, if you are a street photographer and don't know how to zone focus, I will leave a card up here that you guys can check out to pretty much master zone focusing so that you guys won't ever have to use autofocus, and it's a much better way to, you know, approach the streets. But yeah, you guys, that is the 18mm f2. I will be doing a full review here on the channel very soon. But for now, I do gotta say, it's a very fun lens and it's really, really good. So thank you guys, man, for tuning into this episode. I will see you all in the next one. Let me know in the comment section down below your experience on this lens, or if you have any recommendations on a lens of this caliber for the Fujifilm lineup, comment those down below. But I'll see you in the next one, you guys. As always, Minolta Gang.